It's easy to talk about change. It's easy to say what we want to do, what we plan to accomplish, and how we hope to improve. But here's the hard truth: words alone don't create change. You can talk about your dreams all day long, but if you're not taking steps to achieve them, they'll remain just that, dreams. How many times have we said, I'm going to start exercising, or I'm going to get my finances in order, or I'm going to treat people better, but months or even years later, nothing has changed? It's not because we didn't mean it at the time. It's because words without action have no power. And think about this. If someone tells you they love you but never shows it, never supports you, never makes an effort, never treats you with kindness, do you believe their words? Of course not. Because love isn't just something you said, something you show. And the same goes for every area of our lives. Character is proven in actions, not promises. Some people spend their entire lives talking about what they could do, what they should do, or what they would do if circumstances were different. But successful people don't waste time explaining themselves. They just do it. They take small, consistent steps every day. They don't wait for the perfect moment or the right feeling. They act in discipline, not emotion. Jesus himself was a person of action. He didn't just sit around talking about helping people. He got up, walked among them, healed the sick, fed the hungry, and set an example. He didn't just speak the truth, he lived it. And that's what we're called to do. People are watching you. They listen to what you say, but more importantly, they observe what you do. You can talk about faith, but do you live with trust and peace, or do you constantly worry? You can talk about success, but do you put in the work, or do you look for shortcuts? You can talk about integrity, but do you follow through on your commitments, even when no one is watching? The world is full of noise, people making big claims, promising big things, but delivering little. The ones who truly make an impact are those who quietly, consistently do what they say they will do. They let their results speak for them. Think about some of the most respected people in history. Were they the loudest ones in the room, constantly trying to prove themselves with words? No, they were the ones who worked in silence, stayed committed, and let their actions speak for them. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just talk about justice, he walked the streets, stood up for what was right, and led by example. Mother Teresa didn't just talk about kindness, she lived a life of service to the poor. True influence comes from action, not empty words. And here's the reality: people will believe your actions long before they believe your words. You don't have to prove yourself by talking, just show up. Do the work and let the results tell the story. Maybe you've been trying to convince people that you've changed. Maybe you've been telling yourself this time it's different. But real change isn't about making a speech, it's about making a move. Every day, every choice, every small step matters. If you want people to see your growth, you don't need to tell them about it, you just need to live it. So instead of spending time explaining, start executing. Instead of making excuses, take action. Because at the end of the day, the loudest voice you have is not your words, it's the life you live. Promises are easy to make. In moments of excitement, motivation, or conviction, we declare all the things we're going to do. I'm going to wake up early and start exercising. I'm going to stop wasting money and start saving. I'm going to be more patient and control my temper. But what happens? A few days go by and the excitement fades. Reality sets in, the alarm clock rings, and suddenly that workout doesn't seem so urgent. A stressful situation arises, and that promise to stay calm gets thrown out the window. This is where discipline separates the talkers from the doers, because motivation comes and goes, but discipline remains. The problem isn't that we lack good intentions. The problem is that we rely too much on how we feel in the moment. And let's be honest, feelings are unreliable. One day you feel inspired, the next day you feel tired. One moment you're determined, the next you're distracted. If we only act when we feel like it, we'll never achieve lasting change. Look at any successful person in any field, whether it's business, fitnessry, or personal growth. What do they all have in common? They don't just talk about their goals, they commit to the process, even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unnoticed. Discipline isn't about having some extraordinary level of motivation. It's about making a decision and following through on it, regardless of how you feel. Imagine a farmer who says, I'm going to plant a crop this year, but then never actually puts seeds in the ground. He talks about it, he dreams about it, he even tells others about it, but when the season passes, he has nothing to show. That's exactly what happens when we make promises without discipline. We expect a harvest without planting any seeds. Some people wonder why they aren't seeing change in their lives, but they aren't putting in the work. They want financial freedom, but won't control their spending. They want better health, but won't adjust their habits. They want deeper faith, but won't dedicate time to prayer or studying the Word. Results don't come from wishful thinking, they come from disciplined action. Let's talk about consistency. The greatest breakthroughs don't come from one big moment of inspiration, but from small, faithful steps taken daily. I think about an athlete, do they become strong by working out once a month? No, They train even on the days they don't feel like it. They stick to the process, and that's what builds strength physically, mentally, and spiritually. Some of us are waiting for a perfect time to start being disciplined. I'll start eating healthy after this holiday. I'll start budgeting next month. I'll get serious about my goals once I have more time. But the truth is, there will never be a perfect time. Life will always be busy, distractions will always be there, and challenges will always arise. Discipline is choosing to do what's right, even when the conditions aren't ideal. Another thing about discipline, it doesn't need an audience. Some people only follow through when others are watching. They want recognition, they want validation, they want applause. But true discipline happens in the quiet moments when no one is around to praise you. It's waking up early to pray when no one else sees. It's sticking to your commitments even when no one is holding you accountable. It's being faithful in the small things so that when the big opportunities come, you're ready. Talk is cheap, but discipline costs something. It costs comfort, it costs convenience. It costs sacrifice. But the price of discipline is always worth it because it leads to growth, strength, and real transformation. It's one thing to say we have faith, but it's another thing to show it through our actions. Real faith is not just believing, it's moving, stepping, acting, even when we don't have all the answers. Faith is not passive. It doesn't sit back and wait for everything to fall into place. Faith is active. Faith requires effort. Too many people pray for change but refuse to take the steps that lead to change. They pray for a new job but never apply anywhere. They pray for better health but won't change their habits. They pray for financial freedom but continue making reckless decisions with their money. Faith is not magic. Faith is trust in action. The Bible makes it clear in James 2:17, faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. That means you can talk about faith all day long, but if your actions don't align with what you claim to believe, then your faith is empty. If you truly believe that God has called you to do something, you won't just sit around waiting for a sign. You'll start preparing, you'll start walking, you'll start positioning yourself for what's coming. Look at Noah. God told him to build an ark. Now imagine if Noah had said, well, Lord, I believe you, but I'm just going to wait for the rain to come first. That wouldn't have been faith. Faith was Noah picking up his tools and starting to build even when there was no sign of rain. Faith was putting in the work long before he saw any evidence of a storm. Some people are waiting for all the pieces to fall into place before they move. They want every question answered, every problem solved, every resource in place. But that's not how faith works. Faith means stepping forward when you don't have all the details. It means trusting God enough to take action, even when you can't see the full picture. Think about Peter walking on water. He didn't wait for the waves to calm down before stepping out of the boat. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He moved, and as long as he kept his focus on Jesus, he walked on water. But notice something important. The miracle didn't happen while Peter sat in the boat. It happened when he stepped out. Some of us are sitting in the boat, waiting for everything to feel safe, waiting for certainty when God is saying, step out. Trust me, move. Faith isn't just hoping, faith is doing. If you say you have faith that God will provide, are you working hard, being responsible, and using wisdom? If you say you have faith that God will open doors, are you knocking on some? If you say you have faith for a breakthrough, are you preparing for it? There are people who believe in their dreams but never do anything about them. They keep talking about what they want to do, what they feel called to do, but they never take the first step. Faith doesn't just sit and wait. Faith walks forward, even if it's one small step at a time. Abraham was called to leave his homeland and go to a place that God would show him. Notice God didn't give him a full map up front. He didn't tell him every detail of the journey. God just said, go. And Abraham moved. Some of us are waiting for guarantees before we act. We want certainty before we obey. But that's not faith, that's comfort. Faith is trusting God enough to act, even when you don't have all the answers. It's moving forward when all you have is His word. Every great move of God in the Bible required action. The walls of Jericho didn't fall just because the Israelites believed they fell because they marched. The woman with the issue of blood wasn't healed just because she thought about it, she reached out. The blind man didn't receive sight. Just because he had faith, he obeyed when Jesus told him to go and wash. Faith is proven by what we do, not just by what we say. If you truly believe something, it will be reflected in your choices, your habits, your discipline. If you believe God has a purpose for you, you won't waste time on things that distract you from it. If you believe God is your provider, you won't live in a state of constant fear and anxiety about the future. If you believe God has called you to something greater, You won't sit back waiting for the perfect time. You'll start walking toward it right now. Some of us have been waiting for a big moment, waiting for God to drop everything in our laps. But often God is waiting on us to take the first step. The moment we start moving, the moment we take that step of faith, things start shifting. Doors start opening. The path starts becoming clear, because faith without works is dead. It's time to stop just talking about faith and start walking in it. People don't follow words, they follow actions. You can talk all day about being a good person, about having faith, about chasing your dreams, but what really speaks to others is how you live. Your life is the loudest message you will ever preach. There's a reason why people are drawn to individuals who are disciplined, consistent, and strong in their convictions. It's because we live in a world full of empty words, promises made and broken, commitments that fade, people who say one thing and do another. The ones who stand out are those who live with integrity, those whose actions align with their values, those who don't just talk about making an impact, but actually do. Think about the people who have inspired you in your life. Were they the ones who constantly talked about what they were going to do? Or were they the ones who showed up day after day and lived in a way that made you want to do better? Your example is more powerful than your explanations. You don't have to constantly tell people what you believe, let them see it in how you treat others. You don't have to tell your children the importance of honesty, let them see you being honest. You don't have to tell people you have faith, let them see you walk in trust and peace even in difficult times. Jesus didn't just teach with his words, he taught with his life. He didn't just talk about loving people, he demonstrated love through his actions. He didn't just say, trust God, he lived in absolute trust. And because he walked in truth, people followed him. Some people think they need a microphone, a big platform, or a special title to inspire others. But influence doesn't come from having a stage, it comes from having a life that reflects what you claim to believe. People are always watching. They watch how you handle setbacks. They watch how you treat others. They watch how you respond to adversity. And when they see you living with consistency, strength, and character, that's what impacts them. You never know who is watching you right now, looking for hope, looking for direction. There could be someone in your family, in your workplace, in your community who needs to see that it's possible to live differently. Your actions, your faithfulness, your discipline, your kindness might be the very thing that gives them the courage to change their own life. Your walk carries more weight than your talk. You don't have to convince people that you've changed, let them see it. You don't have to tell people that you're a hard worker, let them see your dedication. You don't have to explain to people that you found peace, let them see the way you handle life's storms. We live in a culture where everyone is quick to announce their plans, to post their progress, to declare what they're going to do next. But true impact doesn't come from what you say, it comes from what you consistently do. The people who make the biggest difference are not always the ones making the most noise. They're the ones showing up, doing the work, and letting their lives speak for themselves. Have you ever met someone who doesn't have to say a word, but just by the way they carry themselves, you know they're different? Maybe it's their confidence. Maybe it's their peace. Maybe it's their work ethic, their integrity, their kindness. Something about them is inspiring, not because they talk about it, but because they live it. That's the kind of person we should all strive to be. The kind of person who doesn't need to constantly explain themselves, who doesn't need to prove anything with words, because their life speaks for itself. The kind of person who makes others want to do better simply by the way they live. Some people spend too much time trying to convince others that they're changing, that they're improving, that they're growing. But real change doesn't need to be announced, it becomes obvious. When you live with consistency, when you make decisions that align with your values, when you keep walking even when it's hard, people will notice. You don't have to force people to respect you. You don't have to beg people to believe in you. Just keep walking in truth, keep walking in purpose, keep walking in discipline. And over time, your life will become the proof of everything you've been saying all along. We all want to grow. We want to get stronger, wiser, more disciplined. We want to step into the life we know we're meant to live. But here's something we need to understand. Growth doesn't happen in the talking, it happens in the walking. It's easy to sit and dream about change. It's easy to talk about how we want to improve, how we want to be better, how we want to reach new levels. But growth doesn't come from wishing, it comes from doing. A seed doesn't become a tree just because it wants to grow. It has to be planted, watered, exposed to the elements, and given time. In the same way, we don't grow just because we say we want to. We grow when we step out, take action, and endure the process. Many people are stuck in the same place year after year because they keep waiting for the right time to change. They keep saying, I'll start when I feel ready. But here's the truth, you will never feel fully ready. Growth requires stepping out even when you're uncertain. Think about an athlete. They don't get stronger by just talking about training. They don't improve by watching others work out. They grow because they show up every day, push through discomfort, and do the hard work. The same principle applies to every area of life. If you want to grow spiritually, you can't just talk about faith, you have to live it. If you want to grow in wisdom, you can't just talk about learning, you have to read, listen, study, and apply what you learn. If you want to grow in discipline, you can't just say, I need to be more disciplined. You have to start making daily choices that require self-control even when you don't feel like it. Real growth is uncomfortable. It requires stretching, sacrifice, and stepping out of your comfort zone. That's why so many people choose to stay the same. They want the reward, but they don't want the process. They want the results, but they don't want the effort. But here's what happens. When you commit to the walk, you become stronger. Over time, the things that once seemed impossible start to feel natural. The steps that once felt hard become a part of who you are. What used to challenge you no longer intimidates you, because in the process of walking, you grow. Think about a child learning to walk. They don't just stand up one day and start running. They stumble, they fall. They take one shaky step at a time. But they don't quit, and over time, they get stronger. Before they know it, they're walking confidently without even thinking about it. That's exactly how personal growth works. You don't wake up one day and suddenly have it all together. You take small daily steps. You fail sometimes, you get back up, you keep going. And without even realizing it, you start becoming a stronger, wiser, and more disciplined version of yourself. Some people get discouraged when they don't see immediate results. They take a few steps and expect everything to change overnight. But that's not how growth works. The most lasting transformations happen gradually through consistent effort over time. If you've ever worked out before, you know that one day at the gym won't change your body. But if you stay consistent, day after day, month after month, you'll look back and realize just how far you've come. The same is true for your mindset, your character, your habits, your faith. The key is consistency. The walk is where you develop strength. The walk is where you learn endurance. The walk is where you build resilience. And every step you take, even the small ones, brings you closer to who you were created to be. Too many people stay stuck because they let fear stop them from taking the first step. They worry about failing. They worry about looking foolish. But here's the thing: you don't grow by standing still. You don't get stronger by avoiding challenges. You grow by stepping forward, one step at a time. The only way to change your life is to start walking. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to start. And as you keep moving step by step, you'll realize that the growth you were looking for was never in the talking, it was in the walking.